So I I mean, most of you know me, but I'm like Joanne. I'm Heather. I'm a minister in Orangeville, like I had mentioned. I have been trained in conflict mediation through the Lombard Mennonite Peace Center. And today we're going to talk about how do you have healthy conversations. We're going to talk about conflict. We're also going to do some role playing, and I'm hoping to give you some tips that will help you. So, let's see.
You didn't tell me we were going to role play. I'm
I
not good
know.
at I'm not good at that.
It's
I'll
okay.
just go swimming, okay?
Okay, there we go. So the first question, and because we're a smaller group tonight, I think we can just shout out, like, so we can unmute ourselves because there's different. It's more interactive than not. But wondering what you think conflict is. What do you think when you think conflict?
I think when somebody we don't agree, I think we that becomes a conflict.
Hmm.
Um and we all don't have to agree. We don't all ever agree on the same thing. And that's okay, and we all have our own opinions on that conflict.
Yep. What else is conflict?
An inability to listen.
Ooh.
Oh,
I think it's when this disagreement leads to action, when it leads to people butting heads. It's not just we disagree, but this is happening, it's something negative.
Great. All those great answers. So all of those answers are correct, right? Conflict is a lot of different things for us. There are three components to conflict, three elements: people, problem, and process. Those are the three areas to conflict. So first of all is people. Oftentimes when we have conflict, we can be where we want to be is um, soft on people but hard on issues, right? So oftentimes we confuse how we treat people. Sometimes we're soft on the issues but we're hard on the people, or we're hard on the issues and hard on the people. So we want to be soft on people and hard on the issue, but we're not taught how to be soft on people and hard on issues. So that's an important piece. We didn't have good skill sets growing up because we haven't been taught that, right? So when it comes to conflict, we didn't learn it in school, we didn't learn it in college, we don't learn that in seminary. So all those places we don't learn how to deal with conflict, right? So some of these misconceptions, when we're soft on issues, hard on people, um, we didn't learn how to deal with all of these things, right? So when we think about people, right, we often go to authority figures instead of going to the person involved in conflict. For instance, we go to our conference minister at times when there's conflict rather than going directly to the person. We go to the minister versus going to the person. Maybe we go to a Bible. And of course, maybe we go to lawyers, right? Right? We have all those things that we go to. Oops. So those are the people. We go to these figureheads rather than going directly to the person, because we can think back when we were growing up, maybe, right? We heard our parents say, don't make me come in there, or, I'm in charge because I said so. So we don't have a good way of dealing with conflict, right? We grew up with that piece. Okay, so that's always the problem. So now we have the problem and the process. I'm going to hop back for 1 second. So the problem, right, refers to specific issues in the church. Like we can take the church, for example, right? So we have differences between people in our congregation. It might include things like different values, opposing views, and how to make a decision. Then we have the process. right? And that refers to the way decisions get made. How do people feel about the process? What do we overlook as part of the process, right? And the decision making as a key cause of conflict, right? And then if they're not looped in, if people aren't looped in the process, what happens is there's resentment, being treated unfairly, and a sense of powerlessness. Now, all of these three, people, problem, and process, the process really is the easiest one to manage, I'll say, right? Because you can let everybody know the process, right? That's the easiest. The people and the problem, they're more detailed to work in when you have conflict. But process is the easiest level of not creating conflict, because if you loop people in the process, they're going to understand what's going on. Now, I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was thinking about, in process, we can let people know in our bulletins and we can tell them once or twice, but they don't always listen. So you have to repeat it multiple times, right? Because I always think in the bulletin, we can put things in the bulletin so many times, but people don't always read. But the process is really the easiest way not to get into conflict. The people and the problem, that's a harder piece. So right there. So the problems refers to the specific issues and the differences, and then process, how we do the decision making and how we let people know, and including everybody in that process. Okay? So now there's two ways that we can talk about conflict. We can be divided by conflict, or we can be bound by conflict. I will ask this. Does anybody have any questions so far? No. Okay. So we can be divided or we can be bound together. Hold on one hot second here. Oops. So if we are divided by conflict, we aren't getting along. But if we're bound together in conflict, issues and people are separated, members are properly hard on issues and soft on people, which I just told you. But if you're divided by conflict, issues and people are frequently confused. Therefore, members are often soft on issues and hard on people. So one of the issues, I just thought we would take an issue and talk through this a little bit. So I thought a great issue to talk through, because churches always have this and everybody has an opinion, whether we get pew cushions for our pews, right? So I thought that would be a great way. So I'm going to give you an example in my church. So we're bound together by conflict around our pew cushions. Here's why. The other month, I had a woman die, and she has memorial money, quite a bit. The family didn't know what they wanted to do with their memorial money. So I went to Nancy and I said, "What about pew cushions?" Nancy said, "Heather, I don't want to get pew cushions. I don't think we should get pew cushions in the church." She said they're messy and you have to clean them all the time. And my thought, and I said to her, "But we have people who are older who need cushions." So we listened to each other discuss pew cushions. We are bound together by conflict because we don't agree, but we disagree agreeably. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So when we're divided by conflict, it can be viewed as wrong or dangerous. Divided by conflict, we can have disagreement, means of lack or respect or caring. All right. So divided and bound. Now, I'm going to go to the next slide. I want to see if you have any other examples you can give me in regards to pew cushions, what it looks like to be divided by conflict, what it looks like to be bound together by conflict. Oh, no. All right.
Well, I can think of a number of examples, but I'm thinking Terry's on, right? Terry, you're on?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Terry knows what I'm going to say. The conversations we were having at Chapel Hill regarding the distribution of the assets, the closing of their church.
Uh-huh.
And some of those some of the decisions within that would qualify as bound together. People were sharing different ideas, we had different suggestions, and it was largely agreeable. And then there were sections that were divided by conflict. Very clearly
Yes.
so when name calling started and things like that.
Yes.
So it's interesting that to think that within, and I remember this at St. John's and Jonestown also, this happened, that within a whole piece of conflict, there can be times when you're bound together by it, and other times when you're divided by it,
Right.
all
Right.
around one topic.
Correct. Correct. And the divided by conflict it's never pretty, right? Because you're
Right.
then at that point, you're, because you're hard on the people at that point, and you're not going to, it's hard to recover from that, and for other people to engage in that because you're not listening and you're name calling. Thank you for sharing those examples. Anything else? Bound, divided?
Let me kick in here that yes, following the meeting Carrie talked about where, excuse me, our finances were divided, we had a council meeting the very next day, and we were talking about dividing up and sending some of the furnishings and items in our church. And I have to say that that meeting went better. We were bound, by the decisions that we had to make, and nobody said anything mean to me. And yeah, so they were surprisingly cooperative that day. But I certainly can reflect on the left-hand column that this process at Chapel Hill has involved a lot of that conflict that divided us.
Right, right. And just to make you aware, like I feel like the divided by conflict is more emotional, right? People are thinking
yeah.
emotionally. That dictates their conversation. You're not open to hearing others, and you stop that conversation, right? For me, bound together by conflict, I always think of it this way, and this is one of my favorite examples. And I don't know if you all remember Columbo, Detective Columbo on TV. Okay, so always Detective Columbo, when somebody was murdered, he would go in to the place and he would investigate a little bit, and he always knew who the murderer was, right? He would always have those conversations with him or her. And as he was leaving the building or the room, right, he would close the door almost, and then he'd be like, open it again, and he'd say, oh, just one more thing, right? Like he always did that, right? You're laughing because you remember. So so I feel like bound together by conflict, that's a little bit to me the Columbo effect, because you want to lean into the conflict and learn what the other person is saying, right? You don't want to cut off the conversation. You want to understand where the person is coming from. That's the healthy part of bound together by conflict. You don't have to agree with them, but you want to learn more from their point of view. And I believe that churches have conflict, right? There's always going to be conflict. It's just a part of nature. But how you deal with the conflict matters. And what you say matters. So those were a few of the pieces divided and bound together. So you'll see divided discussions focus on the solution, but it's one person's solution, and that's the right way to do it. By bound together, discussion focuses on the process. What are the needs? What are the various solutions that might be available? What would be a good way to go about examining the strengths and limits of this time together, right? So divided by and bound together, that's what we have with that piece. All right. Anything else? Anybody needs a question, thoughts? Do we understand divided and bound? It sounded like you did. Sound like everybody's on page with the divided and bound. Yeah. Okay. This is one of my favorite quotes. I absolutely love this quote by Peter Steinke. And Amelia, you'll see it's healthy congregations. Wholeness is relational. In wholeness, differences are not eliminated. Rather, they become alive. The different parts interact and cooperate. Wholeness involves various parts coming together and interacting. If your church needs a book to talk about healthy congregations, I would highly recommend this book, Healthy Congregations, The Systems of Approach by Peter Steinke. I use this for my pastor's relations committee right now. We're reading through the book. There's questions in so we can learn together about our relationships. Great book. Highly recommend. So I just wanted to put that in because I was reading the book with my pastor relations. I'm like, this would be worth sharing with all of you.
We used this one in my chaplain residency, and it was eye-opening.
Well, and especially, I think it's eye-opening too when you're looking at process and family systems and going back into, for churches, for instance, if you go back and look at the family dynamics of churches and the history of churches, because if you look at conflict, especially, you'll notice in family systems, like the conflict happens every so often. So in my previous church, we had conflict for part of my ministry. And I looked back to see when our previous conflict was, and it was 7 years prior. So I know the minister who's in the church now, and he called me up the other week and he's like, Heather, there's a little conflict. And I said, okay. So I did the calculations, and you know what? 7 years. So every 7 years, there was a cycle of that church having conflict. And sometimes you don't recognize it because you have to map it out. Healthy Congregations, this book helps you map out some of that as well. And it helps you to know the highs and the lows of a church, but it also can bring to light some of the conflict and everything, all the patterns of the church in addition to the conflict that happens. So I will say that. All right. So now I'm going to teach you the PINS method. I just learned this recently, and I love this from Lombard, and I did not know this before. And it's helped me immensely lately because it cuts through everything. So I'm going to introduce you. So it's PINS, position, interest, and needs. So I want to give you an example. Position. So there was a family that lived next to a dog that barked all night long. And the mother of the house didn't get any sleep because the dog was barking. So the position of the mother is the dog has to go, right? The interest, which is the wants, the neighbors need to get rid of the dog. That's what she's saying. The needs is she needs sleep. It's not about the dog. I mean, it is about the dog because the dog barks, right? But to cut through everything, the needs is she needs to sleep. Does that make sense to you all? Good? Okay. So this is what we're going to do next. This might be a little role playing. Now, if you all, I mean, there's a few of us here. So, but I was going to have Amelia break you out into groups. But if you want to do it together, we can do it together. But this is the role play we have. So we have P's.
I would like to do it together, Heather.
I knew you would say that.
Did you? Sorry, I had to chat to my husband a second. He brought the dog outside. Talk about a dog.
If he barks all night and I can't get any sleep, you're in trouble, Joanne.
Sorry.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Oh my God.
Well, if you don't get any sleep, just call me on my phone. I'll give you my number later because I don't sleep either.
Okay, well then we're good. We're good to go. Oh my gosh. So here it is. So it's the trustee versus the janitor. So the trustee, The janitor fails to get the church open for scheduled meetings and hasn't completed several jobs that the trustees have requested. Installing a drinking fountain is one and an outdoor light. And then the people of the church come and complain to you. And on one occasion, you had to go out and open the church yourself for a committee. You need to see some improvement in the janitor's improvement in his or hers improvement in performance. Excuse me. Janitor, people don't give you adequate warning about meetings. They call you at the last minute. You don't have the skills to do major installations like the light and drinking fountain requested by the trustee. Nobody realizes how hard your job is. So if we were role playing that, let's start there a little bit. All right, who wants to be part of the trustees and who wants to be part of the janitors?
I'll be a janitor.
Okay. Joanne, what do you want to be? A janitor or a trustee?
I don't know. Let me think. Janitor.
Okay, you can be a janitor. Terry, are you willing to be a trustee?
Yes, it sounds
Okay,
like,
we'll just do it together and then Amelia, would you be a trustee as well? All right, so trustees. So you're having this conversation. Trustees, what do you want to say to the janitors? And you can't fire anybody and nobody can quit. All right?
Oh, darn.
I know.
You know, the interesting part about that is several years ago as council president, I'm sorry to interrupt this, but
You're
talk
fine.
about janitor. I was council president and unfortunately I had to be the bad guy.
Yep.
And I had to fire our custodian, our sexton, and that was very difficult. I will tell you because I knew this janitor, the sexton, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So that really made it more difficult.
Sure.
And being the janitor, was he upset with me? Oh, yes, very much so. Because and it's just now in the past 6 months that he has now come back to church because his wife had passed away, come back to and called me. First conversation in, I want to say 7 years.
Wow.
That he had finally called me and said, I would like you to do the funeral luncheon. First conversation in 7 years. See him in the grocery store. I go, hi, how are you? And he would flip on me. He would like turn away and run the other direction. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I will say this before we start. I think with conflict and being in those positions, it's hard. As
Oh.
a person in the church, it's always hard. But what I want to say to you, Joanne, is I think you did good by always trying to say hello to him because you stayed connected with him as much as you possibly could. Now, it was almost like a Columbo, like you leaned in, right? You didn't ask the questions,
Right.
but you said hello. And I think that's the important part because I think in those situations when you have conflict, all you can control is yourself. You can't control how he responds.
Nope.
Right? You can control what you're doing and how you respond. And I think you handled yourself really well.
I did have one of the other gentlemen on the property committee come with me and do it because I did not, number one, did not want to do it alone.
No.
And so I actually had a gentleman who was I don't think he was property chair at the time. Kind of my memory gets a little lost once in a while, but I was the spokesperson, unfortunately, and I got the brunt. But he's back in church, and you know what?
Right.
It may have taken the death of a loved one, but he finally come back. Still a non-member, but is there every Sunday.
That's right. And
that's okay.
Yep.
Everybody is welcome, no matter where you are on life's journey. You are always welcome here.
There you go. Right.
I've preached that a few times.
There you go. I mean, it's about staying connected and building the relationships. And sometimes those are harder than other times. So, all right. So you have the experience. So trustees and janitor. So who wants to start with the trustees? Trustees, when you're talking to your janitor, what do you want to say in this role play?
Well, Carrie, I've been getting some complaints. You know, you're not always here to open the church for scheduled meetings. And I was just wondering what's going on.
Well, probably the first thing I should tell you is that this is my third job. So I'm working on, you know, I got two other jobs. This is the job that I fit in third because I really love this place and you know, really love the people here. So one of the things that frustrates me is I get these calls that there's a meeting coming up and I had no idea. And I'm just getting home from my other position and I can't get over here in time. And then people are telling me they're mad at me because I can't get the church open.
Well, I didn't realize you had all these other responsibilities, Carrie. How about the light outside though, and the drinking fountain? We requested that a couple weeks ago. Is there
Okay,
any
so
movement?
yeah, so here's the thing. I don't do plumbing. Like plumbing isn't my thing. I'm not trained as a plumber. I don't do plumbing. And so I suggest that one of your trustees gives a call to the plumbing who does the kitchen or whatever to talk about the drinking fountain. Now, the light, yeah, that's mine, and I own it. I haven't done that. I should do that. I think that sometimes it's hard for people who are leaders like yourselves because you're probably used to having other people do a lot of your work for you when it comes to your homes and so forth. That maybe you don't think about how hard it might be for me to get to. And I'll tell you something else. That ladder, that ladder that was a gift from somebody in the church, that ladder, man, it's not safe. And I don't want to be using it. And I think you guys should invest in buying a ladder that actually works so that I can be safe doing a job for you.
Amen.
Well, thank you for sharing, Carrie. I guess we maybe need to have a little more communication here. Because we've got to have some improvement, you know, to get this church running safely for everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate you guys like a lot. I appreciate you guys a lot. I love doing the work here. Maybe something that you could think about would be a chart on the wall that just has every meeting and when it's happening. And people have to put those in there by Sunday so that when I look at that on Monday, I know exactly what's happening for the whole week. Like that might be really helpful for me. Something like
Okay, that makes sense. Do you have any other thoughts for us?
no, just get that ladder replaced. I'm telling you, man, it's unsafe. And somebody's going to get hurt, and then somebody's going to get sued.
All righty, I'll ask Fred to take a look at that. And we'll have to check with council to see if we can buy a new ladder, but you hang in there. We do appreciate your job also.
Oh, that's cool. I appreciate you too. Very, very much. Love this place. Love this job. Want to keep doing it. Thanks. Thanks, Sherry.
Sure.
Bet y'all didn't know how much I love role playing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Well done.
It's a little scary.
No. Muting now.
All right, so let's talk about the positions since we role played, right? I think that was great. It was good to role play it through, to think through it. So, what is the position of the trustees in this scenario?
Well, I think first of all, they really truly had to listen to the concerns that the janitor had, even though I was to be a janitor. But I think they need to really listen to what he said, knowing that he has the 3 jobs. And if, it's a last minute thing that he can't get off the meetings at 6:30 and he's getting off work at 6:15 or whatever, he may not be able to make it to the church to get the doors unlocked. And I think that, of course, the council really needs to take a look at that ladder sooner than later, because, number one, we don't want accidents.
That's what you all are going to remember out of this whole
That's
conversation is Carrie's ladder, aren't you?
yeah,
You're
yes.
going to go and be like, oh, what did you learn about conflict? Carrie knows a lot about ladders.
Yeah.
And it's being clear about expectations.
Correct.
From
Right.
Yeah.
from what is here on the screen, they were not communicating in any way, or at least not adequately. So the trustee didn't know about the personal situation of the ladder, and the janitor didn't know what the trustee was expecting. So, expectations, unborn resentments.
Right. Right. So do you think the expectation is the interest or the needs, or you think that's the position, Amelia? I know I'm calling you on the spot. I'm sorry. I don't mean
It's
to.
all right. I was going to say, I think it's the position, because the trustee was not hearing the need of the janitor, and the janitor was not given enough information to hear the need of the trustee.
Okay. All right.
Could
I'm
also
wondering
be-
if, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Terry.
It would kind of be the interest though, too. They each want something, done a certain way or need it to be done a certain way. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
So
Ryan.
I'm wondering about contracts, because in our church, the trustees have not a contract, but they have a list of things that they are responsible for. And then if we were having a sexton, which we do not have, or janitor, that janitor would have a contract. So then who would be responsible? Who is the overseer of that contract? Who is the overseer of the janitor? I would have started out with taking the contract for the janitor and sitting down and saying, I just want to go over your contract and see what your responsibilities are and if they need to be updated, because we're seeing some things that aren't getting done and we're concerned. So how would that be? How would that work? And then you could make adaptations accordingly. And then, you would find out, because I think it's really odd that you don't know that this janitor has 3 jobs, and then you have these expectations and they don't meet your expectations because this person is only carrier, only human. So
I agree. I think the contract is a big piece. I'm really curious. It would be strange to not know that your janitor has more than one job, but I think that would be common. I actually think that's more common than we might think.
Yeah.
But Heather, I'm wondering how you see the position, interest, needs. Like, where do you see them showing up?
So for me and the janitor, right? The janitor doesn't have the skills in this piece. So then for me, the trustees and what? What'd you say?
What?
What?
What do you mean I don't have the skills? That's what you overeducated people are always saying.
You don't like my ladder. You don't like my ladder. You don't have the skills.
It was in honor of your mother, wasn't it? I knew it was you.
Right. We're never getting rid of it. So for me, the skills, right? The skills are part of the needs, because the janitor's not doing what the janitor should be doing, because janitor doesn't have any of the skills. So the janitor might not want to do the outdoor light or the drinking fountain because the janitor doesn't have those skills to do it, right? In addition to working 3 jobs, right? So, but I think that's part of the needs right there. Like, okay, to cut through it all, Janitor doesn't have the skills. So how can we as trustees help the janitor get those skills? And if the janitor wants to have those skills, right? But those might be out of what the janitor realized the janitor has to do. I'm trying not to make the janitor a he or she, because I've had, I've seen them both ways in churches, which is
Right.
lovely, right? But that might be the piece for me. You don't have the skills to do the major things. And then we have the position is we're expecting the janitor to do all these things, right?
Well, that's where Ronette's comment about the job
contract.
description or the
Right.
contract
Right.
comes in, because
Right.
installing a drinking fountain requires a very specific set of skills.
Correct.
And
Correct.
if the contract that isn't clear that plumbing is going to be part of,
Right.
and
Right.
if plumbing is, then send me for a course.
Right. And it says several jobs, right? So these are only 2 examples. So what else isn't? And then the question becomes on another level, what else isn't the janitor doing, and how is that impacting? Like, what else is going on with the janitor that's impacting that person not to do all these other jobs, right? And some of that could be what you said, Carrie, because when you were role playing, writing a list up might not have good communication, so that might be yet another need. But there's a few different ways you can go in with this. Go ahead, Amelia.
Well, the trustees, it interests me that the trustees don't know the skills of this individual. And that the contract would deal with that, but even if there's a contract in place, if they don't know what the skills of this individual are and they're just giving them jobs to do without any awareness, that's not even being a good manager, much less a good trustee.
Right. And then, I mean, and I think of small churches too sometimes, where you don't necessarily go through a trustee, but you tell the janitor one-on-one, I need this to be done, right? And so then that also can create problems, because then the janitor is hearing what they need to do from so many people. So that can be an issue as well. So that communication can also be a piece of this in the needs as well. Anything else with the trustee and janitor? That wasn't a bad role play, was it? No, that was easy.
No, it's a great one.
It's fun because role playing is good when you have conflict, because then you can see a lot of different viewpoints, and you can understand that not everybody sees things the same way. And again, you lean in to understand what other people are saying and what's behind what they're saying. So this is what I'm going to give you next. Hold on one second. There we go. So I think this is like great scripture. Would anybody want to read this for me? Ephesians 4:1-6.
I will.
Sure.
Thank you.
I, therefore, a prisoner in the Lord, beg you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing one another in love, making every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all.
So I want to ask you, what word stood out to you? What one word stood out to you in that reading?
Well, for me, the word beg. Excuse me.
No, are you okay?
Yeah, I've got something going on here. But anyhow, it's important. What he's saying here is so important. And that causes me to look at this in a way other than, well, you should do this and be gentle and be patient and all that. That's just me.
No, that's okay. I mean, different words stand out to different people, right? Because we all bring our own stuff to this, right? So words are going to stand out differently. And each time you would read it, it stands out. So this is really our theological grounding here for the PINS method. What other words stand out to you as you're looking over this, reading it again? What other words stand out to you?
For me, the word gentleness is appropriate.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Go for it, Terry.
As like a trustee or in that role, back in November, now it's a different one. I asked sort of nicely, I asked the janitor to please clean the toilets. And she fired back with, "I'm not working for you anymore." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but the toilets were dirty." So I didn't say that part, but I was like, "Okay, you're not coming back." So I became the janitor.
Well, and you're always gentle in your speech, so
Oh,
that
thanks.
makes perfect sense to me. I also want to say, Lee, I've never noticed that he uses the word beg. I've heard this like hundreds of times, but I've never really seen that as the way that you just pointed it out. So
Well, and for me, these words are so pertinent right now. They've
Yes.
always been, but to follow this could take us away from a lot of conflict if we would to be humble and gentle and patient and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Carrie, what word sticks out to you?
bond,
Mm.
the bond of peace.
Mhm.
I've been thinking a lot lately about bond and bound, what it means to actually be bound together, and how we maintain that, and how we actually, what does living a bond of peace look like?
So for me, the word that tends to stick out is the bearing with one another. Because sometimes I don't want to bear with one another.
I have no idea what you mean.
That always is like, ugh. So bearing with one another is for me. So yeah, Amelia, what's yours?
Well, mine was that whole phrase, bearing with one another in love.
Yeah,
because,
that's what I was going to say.
yeah, if you love somebody, you
Yep.
can be mad as all get out at them, but you still love them, and you're going to treat them differently because you love them than if you're just plain old, you know what, at them.
Right.
And
I hope so.
and right now, with everything that's going on, if we just took one step back and did a real intensive, how much do I care about the next person? But we can't do that because we're caught up in another way.
Ronette, what
Love
is
the
your word?
bird. I don't know whose bird it
Sorry.
is. I love the bird.
Yeah, I don't know where the bird is coming. Joanne, do you have a word?
Well, my word was love, the same as Amelia's.
Mhm.
Not thinking of putting bearing with one another in love, but mine was love, because no matter who we are as the trustee or the Janet, we have to love each other.
Mhm.
I think you might hear my birds.
Yeah, we do. I love it though. It's good
Mhm.
because it's, nature is good. It's goodness for our souls. I always say that, but Ronette, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
What's your word, my dear?
Humility. I think
Mm.
that in the world that we live in, there's not much of it. And I think at times, and I'm going to say this and you all probably like throw eggs in my face, but I think too that we have to pull ourselves back as pastors and remember that
Mhm.
we are to be humble.
all the time.
all the
Amen.
time.
Yeah.
Amen is right.
So this Ephesians text is really a building block of peacemaking, because we have to bear, like we said, we have to bear with one another in love. The scripture mentions humbleness and gentleness. We're not always going to meet that, but we always strive towards that, including patience. So the goal of the PINS method is the needs. How do we get there? Well, we need to have love for this person that we're in conflict with, right? We need to love them. The scripture also talks about bearing with one another, and sometimes we're going to suffer through a situation because we're not always there. And I think of Joanne, was it you or was it Terry that had that janitor, that gentleman?
I
It was
did.
you, Joanne, right?
Yes.
Right? So for me, 7 years is a long time, but we bear with one another, right? And you just always saying hello to him in the store and he never talked to you. That to me is the bearing with one another. And sometimes bearing with one another does mean suffering, right? It's through the situation.
Yes.
Yeah. So the PINS method is about gentleness and working through the situation. So those are the pieces that I wanted to mention tonight. What questions do you have? I'm going to stop sharing and see what kind of questions you have. I won't have all the answers, I'm sure.
Can you say more about how different interest, wants, and needs are within this context?
It's really a simple model. It's the position, the interest, like the wants and needs. It's really that simple. Because I also asked Lombard about that. Like, give me more understanding of it, right? And they're like, you have it.
Family
So it's the,
So tell
well,
me.
wants and needs dichotomy. That's where I'm trying to get at.
yeah, does the position, like, is the position objective position? Like, okay, the position here is I'm a
Yes.
janitor.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
my position.
So
My
I take that back.
interest.
I
Okay,
take that back. So think about the example I gave you. So with the woman who had the barking dog, right? She wanted the dog to go because the dog
that's her
barked all night.
position.
That's her position. She wants the dog to go, right?
Okay, so if we take the janitor and the trustee, the position of the trustee is the janitor needs to do her job.
Correct.
Okay. And then what would be
The
in the
interests.
interest of making
Right.
sure that the church is cared for?
So the interests are the wants, right? So we want the church to be cared for. We want the job to be done. And for the
Well,
janitor, right? The janitor's wants are I want people to give me enough time to do the job, according to the play role that we did, right? Because the janitor's not getting enough time. So those are the wants of the janitor.
so the position for the janitor, though, would be, I need some more clarity. I need more clarity from the trustees. That's
Yes.
my position.
It can be, yes, and it can be multiple. Yes, yes. I feel like they can be multiple positions. That's my own feeling of that. I'll get it next week and I'll let you know. But yes, I'm taking another class next week for the whole week.
Well, it
So-
makes sense to me. I'm just trying to parse out,
process
I
it.
think, I was trying to parse out, I think what Amelia was saying about
Okay, and I appreciate
what's
that.
what's the difference between the interest and the needs? Is the interest what we want to have happen? And then so how is
Yes.
that different from what the needs are?
And then the needs, so the interest are the wants, and then the end are the needs. So just because, so the woman, I'm going to go back to the woman because I think that's an easier one for me to handle at this point, because I don't have the trustee and the janitor in front of me. So
Okay.
the barking dog, get rid of the dog, right? And then the needs are the dog has to go. The barking dog, then the dog has to go. But what I really need is sleep.
So that's the real need.
The position is the dog keeps me up all night. The interest or the needs is the dog has to go. And then the needs, I said position. Position is the dog has to go. The interest is dog got to go. The needs, I'm like getting it confused now. And the needs are I need sleep.
Well, and that helps because I was stuck on the opposite. Family
Okay.
system says the need is the driving figure, the want is a negotiable, but that
No.
doesn't apply here.
No. No.
And what's the need of the dog? Why is the dog barking? That's what I want to know.
Well, there
Well,
is
yeah.
that question, right? And why is the dog out at night? That's another whole thing.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't
But
control
so
that.
Except for the
if
dog.
can I parse this out once more with the janitor?
Yeah, let's try
Just
it.
I want to
because
make
I
sure
know
if
my head is in the dog, your head is in the
It's
janitor.
okay.
Go for it.
I just want to,
I
so
love
the
it.
position, my position is I need some clarity from the trustees. I need some clarity from the trustees about
Yes.
my job. I want better communication, and so that I know when you all are having your friggin' meetings. And I need clarity, and I need you to step up and provide me with that. Surely the position is right.
The position is right. I think the interest in that to me is also the skills. The skills piece stand out to me because you don't have the skills to do everything. So for me, I know I heard what you were saying during the role play, but if I'm looking at that as just reading that janitor, the janitor doesn't have the skill set. So for me, that would be a part of the wants for the interests.
Okay, so I'm thinking of interest as sort of like my investment in it, and maybe yeah, I think I have to think about it some more because
Mm-hmm.
I have a better, I think it's easier to do the trustee actually.
Do you want me to pull the slide up? Or are you just looking at your paper?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Is anybody else wondering about this? How we sort of separate these?
I'm a little confused because the needs of the trustee in the example are kind of at odds with what's described by the janitor because
Mm-hmm.
they're talking across each other. Neither one of them is aware of what's actually going on for
Right.
either one.
Right.
So for me, they're just not communicating. So
And it can be that simple, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. Right. Because I mean, they set it up these role plays so we can have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you this example, and I don't know if you all think horribly of me, and if you do, you don't have to talk to me forever. So anyway, we have a huge parking lot and we have neighbors right across from us. They don't have any parking. They have 2 spots, and they're having a yard sale. They had a yard sale the other week. They didn't come to us and ask if they could use our parking lot. They just had the yard sale, and all day long, they kept using our parking lot. Now, it's not about the parking lot. What it's about for me is the respect of the ask, right?
Mhm.
So for me, if I didn't have that pins method, I would have always thought it was about using the parking lot, but it's not about the parking lot. It's about the respect. That for me is the needs, right? That's what it is. I need them to respect by asking.
It's called being neighborly.
So,
It
Right?
is
well, I was
called
gonna
being neighborly.
say
It drives me nuts.
it's being neighborly, but it also depends on what's your previous relationship with these neighbors.
And the piece of it is it's a rental property. I mean, there's another layer to it because the
That
person who
explains
owns
some of
it
it,
is a
yeah.
church member, right? So then that makes everything.
Oh, then there's an assumption.
Well, I don't. I don't know. And I think there is, but I've talked to them before, right? And I said, hey, anytime you want to use our parking lot, just call me and let me know. We don't have a problem with it, right? So it was a direct, I have told them that. And I didn't go, I went one-on-one because that's what
Okay.
I know to do.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's where it cuts through for me, because before I wouldn't have thought it was the respect. I would have said they're parking in our parking lot. It's not their parking lot.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? So
It's
when
the
I
deep,
went,
it's what's deeper down.
what? It's
It's
deeper
deeper
down.
down. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So when I went to the owner, and I mean, he's a church member and I like him, right? I said, and I said that to him. It's not about the parking lot. I said they can park there. I don't care. It's about the ask and being neighborly and the respect. So it kind of cuts through what everything is about and understanding the depth of where the conflict comes from. Does that make sense?
Forces you to look at what's going on inside you.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Which,
The only
right,
one,
yeah,
right,
the
which
only one you can
does,
control.
right. You're having to take a step back, right? Take a breath and think rationally, right? Versus emotionally. And when we talk about the divided versus bound, because when you're using your brain and you don't think rationally, all these emotions come up, right? And so you're only using, and I think this is what happens, you're only using that reptilian part of your brain and you can't think properly. So, but when you take a step back and breathe and use the pins method, I could say it's about the respect. And think about the woman whose the dog was barking, right? It wasn't, yes, the dog's barking, but she needed to sleep.
yeah, the disrespect, the implied disrespect by keeping your neighbors awake, and all about that.
Correct.
So, and it might be that the janitor is in need of feeling respected also.
Correct. Because he's been getting so many tasks and they're not respecting his time or her time.
Or ability.
Correct. And not understanding maybe they should give him or her more skill sets to do the job, which goes back to ability. So does that make all sense then? I know it's a newer method for me, so I'm not like grounded in it, but it seems like I've been thinking through it, and the parking lot situation that I had last week, I'm like, that's the pins method. And it works to think through that a little bit. But I think remembering things in a rational way versus the emotional is helpful. And
Well,
again,
I
go
think
ahead,
that
Burnett.
I think there's steps to conflict resolution. I mean, and you did that. You went to them, you stated, hey, you put out a
Yep.
welcoming hand, you're welcome to use it. But there was one little stipulation, and that was, let me know.
That's
And so
right.
they breached the contract.
Correct.
And so
yeah,
that's
right.
where it gets a little wonky. Then you start to think, well, geez, here I am offering hospitality like we're supposed to, and they were not hospitable.
Right. And now, right. And that's the piece. That's the piece for me. It's not about anything else but respect. It's good communication. What if we had something going on? So yeah. Carrie, you're on mute.
Can you believe that? Need to be muted more often.
Get out of here.
I think the respect piece, and that one little bit about asking is so important. And the way to bring it home is to say, that way I can tell you if we have an event.
Yep. And I did do that. And but I mean, again,
yeah, what happened?
So when I said that, they were working for another church member, and they said, oh, we know your calendar. We see your newsletter, so we know your calendar. And I said, just so you know, not everything is in our newsletter.
And it doesn't matter.
Well, pretty
ultimately, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter for them.
Still...
That's exactly right.
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 Yeah.
So, but But I followed what I said, right? I went directly to them. I called them and left them know. I didn't do that hierarchy of just going to the owners and saying, "Hey, I don't want your people parking in our parking lot." I went right to them. And then it didn't work. So then at that point, then it was, okay, this needs to go another step. So it's working through that and thinking through it. And again, no matter where we are in life and what we're doing, there's always going to be conflict, but how we handle the conflict is important. I did have this question the other month when I did this. Somebody said that somebody was really combative with them at church and they couldn't do anything with them. And what should they do? In that situation, I said, you're not going to be able to, but again, you can control yourself and how you respond. Because when people are argumentative and they're not going to listen and engage, how are you going to handle yourself in that situation? And breathing through it. And I think the hardest part is just taking a step back and breathing and listening and then moving forward. Because to me, that is the hardest part. I don't know how you all are, but self-differentiation can be a hard piece in life, especially when you have a lot of people coming at you at one time in different ways. So taking that step back and breathing, and you can't always do it, clearly, because given the moment and the circumstances, but how you control yourself, that's what you have. That's what you can do. That's what power you have.
And
Go
especially,
ahead and run it.
I'm reading a book called Let Them right now by Mel Robbins, and it's sort of in that same thing that you can't always control the way people act and the things that they do, and so you have to just kind of, because it'll fester and eat at like people like me who are like the rule follower, it's
Yeah.
one of my bad traits, but I am, and so that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So I have to step back, like you said, take a look,
Mhm.
and let them be them if that's what they want to do. But
Right. You can't control people.
mm-mm.
You just can't. And once you realize you can't control people, you can only control your own
Mhm.
self, you get along in life a lot better. I just think you do. Like you're like, because there's people like, I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? And then I'm like, I don't have to worry about it. I don't control them. It's all me. How am I gonna deal with that? So I mean, I learned that at Lombard too.
I'll just say, Heather, that while that is the ideal for self-differentiation,
Yeah.
our culture historically has had a really hard time with that
Oh yeah.
because we are a proselytizing culture.
Yes.
And so what we want to do is tell others how we believe they should be behaving
Yeah.
and what they should be doing, and then
Yeah.
holding them accountable to what we think they should be doing. And we do that with institutions, and we do it everywhere. And then we deny that we're trying to, well, I'm not trying to get other people to think the way I do. I just ...
Right. Right. Right.
because we actually are. We actually
Well,
are.
and we don't, and I don't think we talk about self-awareness as much as we should, right? That's the other piece to me. Like people don't know what self-differentiation is as much, right? So they don't practice it. And it's hard, but being aware of it, there are days I always think I'm so like I would love to be self-differentiated, but on the scale I am so low, it's ridiculous. But, I think being aware that there is something like self-awareness and self-differentiation is better than nothing. But we don't really talk
Absolutely.
about it. We don't really talk about it. And for me, family systems I operate out of family systems and I love family
Me
systems, and I've
too.
gone to Lombard so many times. I've done advanced clergy clinic all the time, and it's always it always centers me and helps me. So for me, but yeah, but a lot of people don't. They want to control other people
Mhm.
always.
Well, the whole concept of letting them, you know, intellectually, I understand that. But in practice, I may let them, but I don't like them. That's
Right,
Yeah.
where the rubber meets
right,
the road for me.
right,
And we
right.
have to figure out how to live with that,
Yeah.
Yes,
right?
yes. And I did some pastoral care work today, and she was having a hard time wrapping her head around a few things. And I think some of it is understanding your own family system and how you respond as well,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yeah.
Because I know my family system and it's really messed up. And the lovely thing is everybody's family system is messed up.
Yeah.
Like that's the beauty of it. Like everybody's messed up. But knowing how you operate is a big part. And I don't think you're always, sometimes it's going to be hard to engage, and I think sometimes you're just going to be like, I don't like it. I don't like what this person is doing. And that's okay. But I think just working on that and having the awareness again, I will say, Lee, that's the important piece. You know.
And no
But
one
I think
triggered
we're
by
not supposed to dislike them. I mean, what does it mean to love? And I'm not saying in every case it's an enemy,
Right.
but if we're supposed to love our enemy, we're supposed to love the ones between the ones we love and the ones we feel are our enemies.
Mhm.
So I want to be able to have at least decent feelings towards
Right.
Yeah, but
people.
it's that I don't think that I think that that's an impossible ask of us. I think that
Yes.
loving our neighbors is, like Kierkegaard says, the true meaning of loving your neighbor is that the next person who comes, you open your door and the next person who's there, you're able to care for them if they're in need,
Uh,
regardless of whether it's Donald Trump or somebody that you love, and you may love Donald Trump. It
Well,
that's
might be
helpful.
somebody else who you don't. It doesn't have to do with the active emotion of liking, because it's simply not possible, but it does have to do with a commitment. But that's where the spiritual practice is.
Mm.
It's like, if I can't do it in that situation, then I've got a problem. That's sinful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my bar, Lee. I don't think you have to set it higher for yourself.
Okay.
no.
I appreciate that.
And I
Lee,
think I'm going to also say, I'm just going to remind you all of the Ephesians 4's text. How do we bear with one another as well? Right.
I think too that what I tell my congregation, because this comes up all the time, how do I love my neighbor when I can't stand them? And my whole thing is what I say, and I could be dead wrong, but this is how I look at it, is that I love them because they're a child of God, but I don't like what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets me over the hump of of that situation, because I remember having a neighbor next door to me that I thought was going to blow his house up with his kids because he was crazy. And I remember thinking, oh God, please let him leave.
I
Please.
remember that.
You remember that? I was like, he's going to kill us
Yes.
all. But, and like his kids were like Stedford kids. They would come over and you would know what they were doing because you could hear them and you would see what they're beating the dog. But then they'd come over, good morning, Mrs. Butler. It was like, so, but I had to say to them, in my head, I had to say to myself that I love them because they are children of God, but I don't like or trust what they're doing. And that will not change how I would act towards them, because I was always kind and always, even though they hated my guts, I was always kind. So I don't know if that helps
Well,
Lee or not.
I wonder too if it, for me, the most humbling thing to remember about somebody I can't stand, I have somebody in mind, is that God loves that person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that in itself can feel slightly offensive, which is about my own pride. That's about my own pride, right? As if I'm able to determine who God can love and not love.
Yeah.
Which is what we argue about all the time. We say that we can't determine, that we can't do that, and yet it's really tempting.
Thank you.
I try
Amelia,
to
you had
always,
something you want to say.
I try to always remind myself, Jesus washed Judas' feet.
Yep, that's right.
When I'm dealing with somebody that I can't stand and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it and I can't control them, I can only deal with myself. It's like, okay, well, he washed his feet,
Redemption right
over
there.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do the same with communion by intention. And I hold that cup, and if I'm really irritated with somebody in my church,
Yeah.
it hits home and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, because communion has that ability, that moment of vulnerability where it's, especially if you're serving it, suddenly you're aware of
Yeah.
the role of being the one to serve, and
It's powerful.
how humbling that is.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's powerful and it's transformative as a person who says to somebody, you know, this is the cup of the new covenant, right?
Mhm.
It's powerful. So,
Hmm.
any other questions around conflict or anything else? Because I know we got
Thank
off,
you,
we
Heather.
talking a lot of different things. Oh, you're
This
welcome.
is fun.
I hope it was helpful and you learned something.